You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. This week, Nicolas Cage stars in Next. It's Mandy. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then both will pick it in between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin. I am Thomas Mariani, and I am recording this podcast in between shooting 4 to 5 movies in the Ukraine to pay off my dinosaur skeleton debts.
That's great. I'm Adam Thomas, and I'm going to name my next child after a comic book character. Not a normal name, not like Matthew from Matt Murdock, but something really silly like Jor-El or Kal-El or, Khonshu.
Or Galactus.
Yep, Galactus Thomas.
That kid's going to get so beat up.
Oh, shit. Who's this mysterious spiked figure coming in here with his... you can't see the video, ladies and gentlemen, but he's got all these spikes on him, and he's coming on his motorcycle, and he needs blood for blood. It's our lovely British guest, James Rodriguez, returning to the show. James, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, and put the bunny back in the box.
That sounded like a BBC ad. Put the bunny in the box, coming up next on BBC 4.
If you say so.
Sure, I mean, I'm the expert here, James, clearly. I know exactly what BBC programming is like. James, you're back here. We wanted to have you back on for a bit, and you decided on our topic for the evening, which the week we're releasing this is the birthday of one Mr. Nicolas Cage. And we decided to do an episode around him, especially since we have not covered a Nick Cage movie since our very first episode, where we did Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Wow, that's quite a film to cover.
Right, it made us be like, okay, we can't cover another one for another 137 episodes. We have to wait until just the right time that we can get back on the horse. But you kind of jumped on to doing Cage as a topic. Why Cage?
As soon as I saw Nick Cage on the list of topics, I just thought, my God, I've got to have this one. Because, yeah, he can be seen as a bit of a meme, a bit of a shyster for the direct-to-video stuff. But I think he's one of those actors who, even when he does bad films, no matter how many he does, no matter if there's loads and loads and loads, he just seems to always do something interesting, something we can definitely talk about. It's not like we'll get him and there's a film we'll struggle to make conversation about. I feel like even with one of his much lesser films, we're going to have, at the very least, something interesting in his performance or in the choice of what he wears and what hairstyles he has. There just always seems like something to talk about with him.
I'd wager watch the movie Rage and then get back to me. Anything to talk about, because there's nothing to talk about with that movie.
Well, no, I would say, yeah, that's the thing, is I would agree with you 75% of the time. Especially even with the bad movies. There's usually something fun. It's when we get to sort of the era of the direct-to-video on Redbox movies that it becomes a lot more just like, oh, what the fuck? I could not carry a conversation about fucking Stolen.
No. Or Dying of the Light or whatever the hell.
Right, yeah. Just really boring movies, just like, hey, I'm here, I'm a cop, I think. I don't know.
Of something. I got an inexplicably hot wife.
Those are real film titles. They sound like bland-ass name generator knockoffs.
Yeah, I'm sure that the companies that make those movies just kind of have a bunch of stock titles. They just trot out, basically.
Sure.
But that's not the only part of Cage's career. I think his, image has kind of been tarnished recently because of that age. But that's why I wanted to do this episode, is because he has such a fascinating filmography. Going from, his earlier days, working as just, becoming a part of his family stead with the Coppola movies, and then going into, becoming a weird kind of, character actor star, to getting, an Oscar nomination that blew him up and then an action star, and then like a Disney star, and then failure for a while. Really sad failure. And now I think he's on a bit of an upswing, especially as the last couple years. I know, Adam, you've had lesser words to say about him in the past.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when he was hitting it big, that was like in my teens, like with Leaving Las Vegas and Face Off and Con Air and The Rock and all those. And I just thought they were all sort of bland. Like it was basically this, I don't know. I never got into it, but now as I get older and I watch like his older stuff compared with some of the new stuff, especially the genre fare that he's getting into now, I've grown to appreciate him a lot more for sure. And then even going back and revisiting like Con Air and things like that and The Rock, I grew to really be a fan of him now.
What would you say was the first one you saw Cage in?
Probably Moonstruck as a young kid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like probably that, but the one that sticks in is Raising Arizona.
That's the first one for me. It's like my dad loves that movie, and that was like my first Coen Brothers movie. Yeah. And I was instantly just like, of course, perfect. Yeah, but what about you, James? What was the first time you remember seeing Cage?
I think, well, it was either back in the day when we didn't have Netflix or a steady video collection. It was just 4 channels and pretty much Russian roulette for whatever films were on. And I'm sure it ended up being Con Air or Face Off, one of those action films from the 90s, which was, in my opinion, actually quite good.
I would say Face Off and The Rock are like the ones that stand out of that era. Not so much Con Air. Or some of the other ones.
It's so bad. It's so bad, but it's fun.
Like I agree with Adam that like sort of the Jerry Bruckheimering of his career is really interesting, especially as that leads into like National Treasure and then like his like really big stardom stuff around like the early parts of the 2000s. And but at the same time, that stuff is also really what made him, as you mentioned, a meme. He's one of these actors where, like, despite the fact that he has such low restraints, people are just drawn to that energy of Cage because I think even at his worst, at least it's like a unique kind of like even bored Cage is a bit more unique than like in those same movies he'll be next to like Thomas Jane, who looks like he has like no life left in him as an actor, and other people like that. As opposed to Nicolas Cage, just looks like he's more being contained in those movies in a way that's not interesting, but at least just like there's something in there because then he'll do something like one of the movies we're talking about today, and just be really weird and fun. But let's go ahead and get into those, because if you're new to the show, every week Adam and I end up picking randomly a good and a bad feature, because we each have either 2 good movies, 2 bad movies. We switch up on the quality, and that gets us the double feature we discuss for the following episode. So first we'll be talking about our bad pick, which was my choice, which is Next, from 2007. And then we'll talk about Adam's good pick, which is Mandy, from 2018. So let's go ahead and jump in first with Next.
Chris Johnson has the ability to see things before they happen.
I saw far beyond anything I'd ever seen before. I've seen every possible ending. None of them are good for you.
On April 27th, you may think you know what the future holds. But nothing can prepare you for what happens next.
So Next came out April 27, 2007, and is based on a Philip K. Dick story, evidently. Though I'm not sure how...
Very, very, very loosely.
Yeah, right.
It's very loose.
Not very sure. And it was directed by Lee Tamahori, who's a New Zealand director who did, like, Along Came a Spider and Die Another Day, along with Once Were Warriors. Yeah, it's a movie that's basically about Nicolas Cage as a Las Vegas magician. He has the ability to see 2 minutes into his own future. It's a very That's So Raven style premise. He can see into the future, but life would be a breeze. But, as it turns out, he is chased around by Julianne Moore, who is with the FBI, who wants to use his abilities to help them out, in especially like counterterrorism kind of capacity. And he has to try and save himself with the help of either Peter Falk at the very beginning, which is really weird.
Yep.
One of his last movies. And then eventually his love interest, Jessica Biel, who is very awestruck every second that she possibly can be. But like, what? Oh,
look at this guy. Give me a fucking break. Real quick. So, it's funny to me. Like, there's the scene where, of course, Jessica Biel's whole character actually works one day a week for like underprivileged American Indian children,
Yes.
which naturally, of course, why not? But I just love the part where, like, is he your boyfriend? No, he's just my friend. Why? Just because the way he's looking at you. And they look at Nicolas Cage, and he's got this fucking just rat's nest on his head and these horrible teeth. And like he's looking at her, and it's just hey, and she'd be like, hello, no, I'm asking, do you have any? Like, it's so unbelievable that these two would just
that doesn't do it
get
for you?
into it. Well, it does for me, but a woman of Jessica Biel's stature, I don't know.
I don't know, this 25-year-old would clearly be interested in going on 50 at this point, Nicolas Cage. Very clearly, with that hair, which that's really the only knowledge I had of this movie prior to this was the basis for the Nicolas Cage's hair as a bird, your argument is invalid, as a meme. Which was one of the early internet memes I remember like finding so hilarious. And even that picture is still really funny. But yeah, I had not seen this movie until now. I know, Adam, you had seen this previously, right?
Once, and I'll tell you right now, it's like I've never seen it before, and it's also like I haven't seen it twice, because I'm very hard-pressed to remember much about it of any consequence. The main thing I remember is that he dodges a sniper's bullet, that the crosshairs of the gun aren't even on him. He just does a weird side turn and the bullet messes up.
Exactly.
They're like, no. It's so fucking stupid. And Thomas Kretschmann, just stop with this. Like, do better things, for God's sakes.
Adam's a fan, clearly. We'll get to more of his thoughts later. But James, you hadn't seen this either, right? And were you a fan of Next?
I've never seen this film before. I was aware of it. I remember TV spots. I remember seeing the poster. I remember getting it mixed up with Bangkok Dangerous for some reason as well. But I went into it. I thought, oh, it's a cool premise. And I was thoroughly disappointed when they did fuck all interesting with it.
No, yeah, this is definitely the part of Cage's career, because this is not too long after National Treasure. And this is actually the same year as National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets. So he's still in, like, doing big blockbuster movies territory. And this feels like it's a movie that's been, like, in some sort of production closet for a while. And then they were just like, how about we do it with Nicolas Cage? Because he's popular right now. And this is more of bored Cage, but I'll say I found at least it consistently hilarious to me. Every time we cut to Nick Cage, and he looks like he's his own, like, cardboard standee in the theater promoting this movie. Like, this is the stiffest I've ever seen him, where he's just standing there just, hey, I'm here, I'm a Las Vegas magician. Like, the idea that he's a magician is so fascinating, because it's like, what stagecraft does this guy have? Because he has no, like, when you see him on stage, it's just like, hey everybody, welcome to Vegas.
But to be fair, and I know it sounds crazy, I'm defending that choice, because what? But to be fair, at least he was only performing to like 6 people. Like, clearly he's washed up, he's nothing, nobody really gives a shit about him. So I'll give it that, at least there's that to it. Other than that, the whole movie is basically Nicolas Cage just wanting to get sweaty with Jessica Biel. That's basically the whole plot of the movie. I know I've seen her before. Oh, yeah. And they meet. And again, look, and I'm not saying anything about Nicolas Cage's looks. I am saying a lot about Jessica Biel's looks, because yowie, wowie. But you're telling me that this guy, that her openly abusive boyfriend in the middle of a fucking public restaurant, you're telling me that he knocks out Nicolas Cage, and within 24 hours, she beds Nicolas Cage? There's no. There is no universe, be it by Philip K. Dick or not, where that would happen. It is ridiculous. And when they are laying in bed, and she's got her poor, sweet, beautiful, smooth face on his horrible chest hair, I just felt so bad for her. And then she had to kiss his, like, catcher's mitt of a face. Like, it's just, way to go, Jessica Biel. Like, this, give her the Oscar.
It goes back to that first scene where she actually walks into the diner and he's just staring at her like the most obviously creepy stalker.
Oh.
And it's only because the dickhead X from Battlestar Galactica comes in and acts even worse that he seems Not the worst
Okay.
option.
It's okay. He is drinking a martini at 8 a.m. at a diner. Like, that should have probably been a red flag right off.
Or especially how much time he spends like staring at her from the diner, like I'm playing it cool, even though I'm staring directly at you, Jessica Biel.
Right. Exactly. I mean, hard at her too, like a hard focus on his face. Like, dude, bro. And his coat matches his skin color. Like, it's just all fucked up. Like, everything is just wrong about this movie.
I would say, at least to me, there's, especially after we get that scene you talked about at the reservation, which is hilarious. After that point, I think it has this weird kind of like, this is too over-budgeted energy to it that makes it kind of fun, especially when we get the scene where, like, Julianne Moore's, who, by the way, can't play FBI agents, especially after, like, Hannibal. Like, why are you doing this again? Like, you're great, Julianne Moore. Don't play FBI agents, because you're not very good at it.
Yeah, just stop. Just stop. And also, hold on, though. my last little thing I'm going to say before I'll be quiet for a minute. So, back to the Jessica Biel thing. Nicolas Cage seducing. You're telling me that a hot dog joke gets her gumption, like gets her gears revving. What did the Zen master order on his hot dog? He had one with everything. And she's like, oh!
I love a man with a sense of humor.
Clearly, she's attracted to that look of a bald man who's wearing a fuzzy cape.
Yeah.
On his head,
Yeah.
yes. But I think that's the thing, is like, even the scenes where he's quote-unquote like romancing her, telling her about like, here's my secret, I can see 2 minutes in the future, like the thing with the TV, is like, it's so funny to me, especially Jessica Biel has an equally baffling look on her face, just like, huh? Like her hangdog expression that's trying to indicate like, I'm so fascinated by you. It's so fucking funny.
It's probably more or less, why am I doing this?
Right, clear something up for me, guys. Now, Nicolas Cage's power, there doesn't seem to be a limit on it. It's not like I can use it and then have to wait 5 minutes to recharge. So, theoretically, if he can only see 2 minutes in the future, he could keep using it, so he can keep stocking up and always see what's in the future. So why is Julianne Moore then saying, okay, if you wait 2 minutes and then put this in, he won't see it? I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I thought that too, because I get the idea that you can only see 2 minutes in the future and that it, from any given moment. But you got to figure every second would be 2 minutes longer, 2 minutes longer, 2 minutes longer, 2 minutes. You would constantly be able to see 2 minutes into the future. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Drug him. What? Like the FBI, slip him a Mickey. No, the FBI doesn't do that. At least not with some random civilian who just banged the dude. They're going to put all their faith in her. Just get out of here.
And then there's also the inconsistency of, at some points he stops and just like, has a clear vision, when in other times he's just like, shoot just above the guardrail and you get back. And seems like sometimes he has a clear, we see clearly he's getting the instance, and other times it's like not even noticing it.
Or he can at one point see all possible outcomes at one time, because he makes copies of himself, apparently.
Which I love that bit. He turns into multiple man, literally.
Oh, literally. And it's like, wait, what? I don't understand. Like, this doesn't. It literally, the idea of the powers is just kind of like, you can see the future. Well, how do you define it? Ooh, boogity. Like, there's no explanation really given. It's so fucking lame, dude. And, the fucking ending.
Well, hold on. Before we get to the ending, like,
yeah.
The thing I want to like emphasize is, like, I agree with you all that this is a very terrible, silly movie. But at the same time, I would strongly argue, of this era of the bad Nick Cage, like especially bigger budget movies, this is one of the more watchable ones.
Just on a fascinating level and an effects sort of idea, because at the time, the special effects when he is becoming a multiple man does look kind of cool. Actually, it doesn't look bad, and there's some cool stuff in it. The base of it is a cool idea, but yeah, compared to like Bangkok Dangerous or Season of the Witch,
The first
or any
Ghost
of
Rider, even like
yeah.
people love that. People love how funny the Wicker Man movie is. Like that movie's mostly very boring. It's a really dull fucking movie.
It's incredible. It's a 2 hour and 20-minute long movie with about 15 minutes of Nicolas Cage being a maniac.
Yeah.
The rest of it's just dull.
Yes.
No, I gotta agree with you that this is probably of the post sort of Con Air face-off Cage-assance. This is probably one of the better ones, which is really heartbreaking to say. But it's...
would you agree with that, James?
There is, I think, some interesting things in, like, when Nicolas Cage and Julianne Moore are being the body cop duo of, I think there's interesting things they could mine from that. And a part of me likes the whole Final Destination era kind of bits where Nicolas Cage is constantly dying, but then, oh no, not really, it's a vision. Ta-da! Yeah, not gonna play that 100 million fucking times.
Right, they go with a bit of like a Groundhog Day thing to it, yeah. Also, I love, like, my favorite thing about that whole element of that you're talking about is, like, all these guys are using these efficient guns, and Julianne Moore, too. And then Nicolas Cage is walking around in this weird way where he's got, like, his arms, like, moving like he's almost bow-legged or something. It's such a weird fucking, like, stance he's doing as he's walking around, everyone basically... He's like one of those, tutorial characters in a video game where he's telling you how to use, like, here, press X to shoot. That's what he feels like his role is at that point. I just think that there's a lot of, like, weird, funny bits, like the stuff Adam was talking about with, like, when Julianne Moore's trying to hunt him, and the guy tries to shoot him, and obviously so far off of the target. Or my favorite bit, when the car is coming down, he's like, swoop down at just the right time.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's basically Rhys Darby in the new Jumanji. that's totally him. And yeah, that whole scene, which, by the way, he just bankrupted like that business that had those antique tractors and shit outside. He just ruined that business. That whole town is going under now. Nicolas Cage is the invention of oil. You know what I'm saying? He's like he shut down the town.
Nicolas Cage is the computers coming in to destroy, like, the all the jobs for everybody.
He's a chopping ball.
Technically not by the end of it, though.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. We should establish the ending bit, where, yes, after, like, this elaborate climax happens, a solid 30 or 40 minutes of time has elapsed. All of a sudden, we go back, and it's like, oh my god, everything from the point where Adam was talking about Jessica Biel on his horrible, greasy, hairy body in bed, like, it goes all the way back to that. So the last, like, 30 or 40 minutes didn't happen. It was just a vision, because he can extend it out further when he's around Jessica Biel, I guess. That's the love they share.
The ending before he wakes up again, it was stupid, but it was so ballsy that I wish they would have just stuck with it.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm going to get the bomb. And most people die. It's fucking great. This movie would have literally been like a top 5 for me if everybody would have just fucking died at the end. It would have been so awesome.
I can do the one thing they wanted me to do.
I was so blinded by ass.
But yeah, but then they go all the way back, and at that point, honestly, the last, like, 5 minutes after that happens, we're just like, hey, Julianne Moore, I'll help you out, all this other stuff. I was just laughing. I was, like, maniacally laughing at how, like, this is the stupidest fucking decision I've ever seen any big movie do.
She's like, so you're telling me this guy that she just banged out of nowhere, knows nothing about, wakes up the next day, he's like, I gotta take off. There's something I need to do. She wouldn't be like, are you fucking married or got kids or something? She's like, are you coming back? Yeah. I'll wait here in this shitty hotel for you. Like, you know what I mean? I'll find you. Might be a week, might be a month. But if you want me to, I'll find you. No, I'm good. No, you go ahead. Take it easy. You know what I'm saying? Fucking hell.
It's fucking frustrating. The plot that we were essentially promised for the film is pushed to the side for sequel setup just so Nick Cage can use his psychic powers to bang Jessica Biel. And am I the only one who finds that a bit skeezy, whether he intends it or not? And there's a scene where they discuss that he didn't intend it that way. A part of it feels like he's using his future powers to manipulate Jessica Biel and so they can get together.
Absolutely.
Like,
They
Yes.
show the scene of him manipulating her to where he's seeing all the possible outcomes of how to get together with her. Like he's a total just dirtbag. Like he's awful. And again, why is Peter Falk in this movie? For one, it makes no sense. And two, when Julianne Moore confronts Nicolas Cage at Peter Falk's really awesome chop shop, by the way, where he's got pool tables. And she comes in, and Peter Falk like gets in between them, like, nah, you want me to take her out for you? What is he gonna do? All she has to do is stand to his left. It's ridiculous.
He's just gonna keep saying, just one more thing. Just one more thing.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Your hair was terrible. Fucking, just stop. The thing is, I'm more okay with where Nicolas Cage is now in his career, which is kind of doing whatever the fuck he wants and really not caring if it's a big hit or anything anymore. He really picks and chooses, kind of. Like, he does a lot of paycheck movies, you can tell, but it also pop up in like Mandy, Color Out of Space, things like that. But like this era of Nick Cage, I'm so glad is over. Like the What Wig is Nicolas Cage in this week sort of movie. Like, thank God.
Yeah, when we're getting stuff like Knowing or Season of the Witch, Drive Angry, shit like that.
Left Behind.
Right, Left Behind, where it's so much more of like, wait, we have to pay off all these debts that he had, which obviously that's another big part of the Nicolas Cage legend, is I spent way too much money on castles and dinosaur skulls and all this other shit.
Books. He paid like $2 million for the first Superman comic.
Right, yes.
he bought the most haunted house and a massive grave for him and his girlfriend.
Yes, he did. He did too.
Oh, yeah. Why not? You know what I mean? Fuck it, dude. He's so far out there, man. He's gone. Like, fuck it. Just that's why I like him so much. You kind of just got to celebrate the craziness that he has become.
Oh no, one of my favorite events I've ever been to was at South by Southwest. He was there with Joe, and I saw it's like a conversation with Nicolas Cage, and it's one of the most magical things I've ever seen. Where he's just like, "So yeah, when I did Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, I was influenced by Kabuki theater, and also I do secret missions for the UN." And also a lady tried to bite me because she thought she was a vampire.
My favorite story is that apparently he woke up in his bed and there was a naked guy at the end of his bed wearing his leather jacket eating a popsicle. Like, apparently that was true. Someone broke into his house and did that. But
that was his butler or something. There's no question. Nicolas Cage didn't see, but the butler's like, I'm going to wear that fucking jacket as soon as he passes out.
I don't know. It was Kevin Durant on the set of Primal, just like, Kevin, you can't keep doing this. But yeah, I think we've talked as much as we can about Next. We'll go into final thoughts here. I'll just initially state that, like I said, I think this isn't nearly the worst one we could have done. It was so taxing trying to find a bad movie. Two bad movies that you lovely patrons at patreon.com/GETBpod, like James, we should mention, voted between this and Primal. Having seen Primal and just seen a couple of those straight-to-video movies, I was so dreading, I don't want to do one of those. And this is a much better alternative. In terms of, it's not necessarily a great so-bad-it's-good movie, but it's just entertaining enough on a so-bad-it's-good level to some degree, and also just some of the ideas that we were talking about. But it's this would be a totally, fun cable watch. I wouldn't have gone to a theater to see this. But stumbling upon it on cable or on a streaming service, just, it's perfectly fine for that. And you won't, as Anna mentioned, really remember much about it, after a week or so.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a laugh riot, too. I just was laughing out loud several times, and I would pause it to go into the other room and tell my wife what the hell was happening. And she was like, what? I'm like, no, you don't understand. Of course she works with Native American children in a fucking oasis, by the way. It's the most beautiful, poor town I've ever seen in my life. They have just beautiful waterfalls and lush greenery. But no, I agree. It's not close to being one of the best. It's not really one of the worst. I'd say it is probably the best bad fun one to cover out of his career, at least of this era, to where at least there's something to talk about. There's at least you get laughs out of it, and just the ridiculous of it all, gives you something to at least discuss. Where something like Bangkok Dangerous or something like that, where he's taking himself way too seriously, those are chores to get through.
And what about you, James? Your final thoughts on Next?
I thought it was had an interesting story, which it did nothing with and gave a boring alternative for. I was frustrated by the end. I was left wondering what was the point of it. But you know what? You're right. I am a patron. I voted for this one. This is what my hard-earned pound got, and I got what I paid for, but it could have been worse. I mean, I watched Left Behind earlier today, and oh my fucking God, that was a nightmare to get through. So you know what? Thank you for not going down that route, Thomas.
Like, I'd also say the other alternative was Primal, and I think we would have been in a worse place trying to talk about Primal, which, despite the cool premise of, like, Nicolas Cage hunts exotic animals, it's like a really dull movie that's all on a boat and nothing happens, really. But before we get to our next movie, here is a promo for an ESO she can queue up right after ours.
That was so bad.
Wow.
Hey everyone, this is George Tripsis, co-host from the Metal Geeks podcast, along with Carrie, the Metal Geek, and Brutal Dave. Our show is where we bring the metal geek culture and heavy metal culture and mash it into the geek culture. Come listen to our show where we talk about movies, comic books, Disney stuff, and mostly about movies where I'm always right and Carrie's never right. Check us out at metalgeeks.net and catch us on all your earhole listening podcast devices.
I'm Carrie the Metal Geek, and I approve this message.
All right, here we go with our good movie, Mandy.
Under the crimson, primordial sky, the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace.
You're a special one, Mandy.
So what you gonna do with that thing?
I'm going hunting.
So what you hunting?
It's crazy evil.
So, Mandy is a movie that came out in 2018, September 14th, 2018, from director Panos Cosmatos, who I found out is the son of George P. Cosmatos, who did, like, Cobra and Tombstone, which I was not aware of until doing the research for this. It's a second feature after Beyond the Black Rainbow, and it's a story of Mandy, who is played by Andrea Riseborough, is in love with Red, played by Nicolas Cage. They're married off in the secluded woods in 1983, and Mandy comes across a wandering cult who has a cult leader that's infatuated with her, and they kidnap both Red and Mandy, and eventually, try and get Mandy to become a part of the cult, and then she scorns the cult leader, who ends up unfortunately burning her alive, and that starts a revenge rampage throughout the second half of the movie, where Nicolas Cage fights off a bunch of, like, weird biker dudes that look like the fucking Plague from Hobo with the Shotgun.
Pretty much, or like the Plague mixed with Cenobites, mixed with whatever the fuck is going on. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate synopsis. That's about the best you could do with this movie. This movie's fucking wacky. It's silly, but holy shit, is this a movie a visual feast?
Yes.
I mean, honestly, one of the main reasons I picked it. Don't get me wrong, I do like Nicolas Cage in it. This is a perfect vehicle for Nicolas Cage to be crazy Nicolas Cage. Like, it works perfect in the context of the story and how crazy it all is. With like the drug use and just raging out in the bathroom in his underwear and that tiger shirt and all this shit. Like, it's nutty, it's crazy, but it's so goddamn fun and great to look at.
I think what really helps that is that it's not just wacky Rage Cage. You get he's subdued and he's content with life with Mandy at the beginning, and you feel they're at peace and one with each other, and you believe in their love. But once Mandy is unfortunately murdered, he justifiably gets into that rage, and the parts where you really see the turn is that dazzling scene in the bathroom where all just that rage and hurt is just burst out. It's like he had that rage all along, but it was quelled, it was momentarily silenced. But now, that lid's gone. He's out for blood, and he's going to get his blood-soaked pound of flesh, no matter what it costs.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think this has the two great flavors of Cage, because we talked about in Next we get Bored Cage, which is like a sad sight to see usually. But then there's Crazy Cage and the all too rare but masterful, like genuinely great actor Cage. And I think you get those two later flavors really well in like the first half of the movie, as you mentioned, where it's Cage him being subdued and him being a lot more like emotionally invested with Andrea Riseborough, who we've talked about before, is like such a great chameleon of an actress.
So good.
Like, you could never tell me, like, oh, this is the same lady from Possessor. She blends into any role that she gets. And I think the two of them have a really, I agree, natural chemistry, despite how kind of weird they are. Like, even when they're under the stars and everything is sort of this weird crimson pink kind of look, and she's talking about, like, oh, what's your favorite planet? Saturn. Actually, I changed my mind. It's Galactus.
Of course he picks Galactus. Of course he does.
And in any other movie, that would be super dumb, but it's kind of sweet in this context, and it's kind of engaging, so that when we get the Crazy Cage after a certain point, it feels kind of earned. And also, like Adam mentioned, when he goes insane, it comes from like the grief. Like, it makes sense for like in this world that this Cage would be just like, I lost the love of my life and I've lost all sense of humanity and I'm going full hog. It really works beautifully.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And plus, I got to give it up to Linus Roach in this movie too, man. I think Linus Roach almost steals the movie for me. He's so good as that weird ass cult leader. Of course, he's got that fucking album where he's the singer and all this stuff, and he gets nude because he thinks he's just something to behold. And I love that Mandy just cuts his ass down to size every chance she gets. Like, that was so good for me. That goddamn axe weapon that Red just fashions is one of the coolest on-screen weapons in a long fucking time. That thing is badass.
Especially the scene where he ends up constructing the weapon and it looks like fucking Conan.
Yes. It's like he just knows how to do that. He just has the plans for that weapon. Like, how fucking cool. But it just fits, though. At no point do you question, like, why would he know how to do this or have this? It makes sense in the context and the reality of this movie. If you tried to dissect this movie, like, well, why are these guys like demon bikers, yet they're not? And there's a bunch of drugs, and then this weird chemist who's and basically like a airplane hangar out in the middle of, like, you can't try to give this movie any real rhyme or reason. You kind of just got to go with it.
The best way to kind of sum it up is, like, imagine if both your favorite album cover from the 80s and also that weird dude who has a cool painted van, his van came to life along with the album cover. Like, that's the universe this movie lives in. Is that?
Yeah, you guys were all doing shrooms in it.
Right. For sure.
Look at the colors, man. Like, that's literally what it is.
I think also what works really well on this film for me is that even when you're getting the bloody kills and Cage lighting a cigarette off a burning, decapitated head, it doesn't forget that there's a tragedy underlining it. Like, he can be like Jupiter, he can have this destructive force of a hurricane, but it can't mask that he's lost the love of his life. No matter how many people he kills, the past can't be undone. It's like that biker says to him, she's still burning. And it's not Hollywood's idea of vengeance where, oh yeah, I'll just kill these people and go have a spot of tea. No, he's fucked up by the whole thing. And you can see it in the final scene and when he's living out that hallucination. And it's incredibly sad. And I think Cage really sells it well.
And also, it helps that Mandy is actually more of a character than your average, like, wife who gets killed and sparks like a revenge rampage kind of thing. I think if that performance didn't work nearly as well as it did, this would feel a lot more kind of like, oh, this is a sillier Death Wish sequel with, like, cool colors.
It would be the movie Rage. It would be literally just a boring revenge film. I completely agree with you. But the fact that, she's fantastic in it, but it's such a well-written, fleshed-out character for the little bit amount of time she's on screen. Like I said, I love that she's super fucking ballsy. Like, she is just like, nah, fuck you, man. Like, the whole time, like, this music sucks. Like, it's really fucking cool. Like, it gives her such a good character dynamic, and it makes her more believable as someone that he would feel such pain for losing, because you kind of get the idea that she balanced him out, he balanced her out, they kept each other sort of in check, they were the perfect sort of mix of two people. You take one thing out of that equation, and then the other one just goes wild. There's no one there to keep him balanced, and he goes fucking hog shit crazy. And it's perfect. It works.
They feel like your favorite couple that goes to your horror convention every year you love seeing. Where it's like, oh, these two are weird, but they're so cute together in their weird way. I think that's what really works about it. But also, like, I agree about Linus Roach, who is playing like a version of Manson.
He looks like fucking Robert Plant though from Led Zeppelin.
He looks a lot like that's very accurate.
Yeah.
But what I like is the fact that like he constantly has like these like highfalutin kind of like what you're mentioning, this ego about him, and it's so easily cut down by like Mandy. Even the moment she starts laughing, she's like, "Shut up!" Even earlier on, even earlier on before that, when like one of his lackeys is like, "I don't know if I want to go out and like get this girl for you," he's just like, "Please." He's such a little shit. And the movie never forgets that, all the way down to the amazing like climax of this movie where he's trying to be like, "Oh, I'm something higher than you are. You can't really hurt me." And then, "I'll suck your dick, man. I'll do it." I was just like, you pathetic little worm of a person.
Yep.
Oh, but how satisfying is it to see that little shit get its head crushed so vividly?
Yeah, it's so good. All the kills like really work, especially as like a horror person. Like there are some of these kills that are like astonishing. They're kind of like I know this was a big inspiration for Cosmatos' like first movie and this movie is VHS covers from the 80s for horror movies like he could never rent as a child, but he was always fascinated by the covers. It also feels like one of those like grindhousey covers that you see in those like video stores. You're like, "Oh my god, I want to get this," and then you watch those movies later and most of them are just kind of boring and dull and the cover's way better. This is that cover as well come to life, just like, oh, this is everything you would have wanted in one of those VHS covers.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. In fact, I think almost a perfect sort of triple feature for somebody who's never seen this movie or any movies of the ilk. I would say start off with like VFW, go home with the shotgun, and go Mandy. And it's literally just all of the same ideas just done on so many different levels and with so many different creeds of actors and different sort of takes on the genre. But at the same time, they're kind of all the same. They're just splatterfest celebrations of sort of just pure violence and insanity of the 80s. And I think they would all meld really well together.
Yeah, right down to having an awesome cameo by Bill Duke to give us exposition, but also just be like, basically, you ain't gonna make it out alive, dude. This isn't gonna work for you.
Yeah.
I fought a predator once. I didn't make it out somehow.
Yep. And he was gonna bleed him, leave him there, real quiet.
But that's why I love also, like, every single part has their own kind of distinctive quality to it. Like, particularly I love Richard Brake as the chemist, who's so strung out, just like, oh man, that's Lizzie. The fucking tiger.
That guy's got a fucking face on him, doesn't he? Like, he is perfect in these type of roles. As these weird, sort of just strung out, creepy guys. Like, and he works really well in this bit part. It was really cool seeing Richard Brake.
Yeah, who's your favorite sort of like the smaller side characters, James?
Oh shit. Now you're putting me on the spot.
That's what we do.
Okay, I'm just going to fall back on Bill Duke, and just from his little van just saying fuck off on the side to him, without question, helping out Red. Be like, I've got some arrows for you, just put them to good use. He fits the film for that one scene, but it's such a good scene, which is such a good transition between Red needing that crossbow back to Red fire fucking shit up.
James, I'm really disappointed. I gave you the perfect opportunity to mention the greatest underrated MVP of this movie, and you didn't. The best side character is Cheddar Goblin.
Cheddar Goblin.
It's fucking Cheddar Goblin.
You're right.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I love how there's a real strategy to using that particular commercial, because it comes right after Mandy is horribly burned in a really upsetting, like, genuinely unsettling scene. With, like, particularly when Nicolas Cage crawls out after getting, like, all his barbed wire hands off, and then he crawls over and her skull is there, and it fucking flies away with the wind. It's so upsetting. And then we have to have a scene where he just watches a really silly, stupid commercial.
Why not, though? Why not?
You need that relief of just like, oh, Cheddar Goblin, my savior, Cheddar Goblin, I needed you. And shout out to that was actually done by the guy who did Too Many Cooks, the infamous Adult Swim short, which makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, you can tell it's from the same wacky mind as that 14-minute short.
It feels like it could be just a segment from Too Many Cooks with just that goblin vomiting mac and cheese on those kids.
And that's become like its own thing now, where people buy Cheddar Goblin toys and things like that. It's so fucking funny to me that this movie basically had cult status before it even came out. Much like Color Out of Space. Before it even came out, people were like, oh, fuck yeah. Because it's Richard Stanley, it's Lovecraft, and it's Nick Cage. People were totally into it. And you know what? I would say even more so than Color Out of Space, which I do like. Mandy's more deserving of that.
Well, yeah, also, I would say usually there are movies that try and do that, where it's like, hey, we're going to manufacture a cult movie, and it doesn't work, usually, when you try and, like, make that insincerely. I think this one works even more so than, I think that's what I would more describe something like Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I saw recently, and I think that one is visually interesting, but it's really cold to me, in a way that I'm just like, I'm kind of, like, watching things happen, but I don't care what's happening, kind of thing with that movie. It feels more like, oh, this is a really cool screensaver with a narrative, I guess. But this movie, I think it has like so much of that earned because it like weaves all this stuff together so not subtly, but with like it's not a subtle movie. Yeah. But it weaves it all together in a way that like Adam was kind of talking about. You don't ever question it. Like from the start, we get like, oh, okay, Mandy makes these like art pieces that kind of reflect the visual style of the movie. So we know from the start, like, oh, okay, yeah, this is like going to be a weird, surreal, kind of pinkish, purplish, kind of colored movie. And it's cool. We don't mind that. Yeah, we can really jump into it. It really eases you into the weird style, but in a way that feels like you're invested in so what's going on. And
I think it helps that Johan Johansson does such a good score on top of it as well.
R.I.P. Yeah, this is one of his posthumous releases. It's such a good score.
The score is fantastic in this movie. It's absolutely incredible.
And also melding that with, like, the King Crimson song at the opening, just like, fuck yeah, we're really establishing the tone quite well.
Instantly. I mean, like you said, pretty much instantly, you get it right off within the first 5 minutes, like, this movie's going to be a fucking trip, man. And it's exactly what it is. It's a fucking acid trip of a 80s horror movie. And it's just... It's beautiful. It's so goddamn beautiful.
Well, Adam, why don't you move into final thoughts? And also, what do you think Cage needs to carry on from this movie as he continues on in his career to kind of keep it going at this kind of level? What do you think he needs to kind of like remember from this movie to keep consistent?
Well, final thoughts first. I'll say that exactly what I said before. Like this is not a movie for everyone. It's a very divisive movie. I know people who absolutely hate this movie too. There's a lot of people who don't like Nicolas Cage and are tired of Nicolas Cage and everything like that. So there's a disconnect there for some people. And there's also a disconnect where a lot of people can't just sort of sit back and let a movie go and just go with it where it takes you and just whatever. The rules are out the window. Just it is what it is for what it is. And I think this is definitely one of those movies. I think if you are trying to make sense of any of it, then you're not going to enjoy it. You kind of just got to watch it and experience it for what it is. It's a fucking wild ride, man. And as far as what Nicolas Cage to sort of take from this and keep going, just choosing the right parts for his persona. Like, he's Nicolas Cage in this movie. Like, there's no question. It's Nicolas Cage being crazy Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage being subdued Nicolas Cage in parts. But he's still being wild-ass Nicolas Cage. And I think if he just chose the roles that call for that a little bit more than some of the other ones he did, then he could be let off the leash and really sort of have a reemergence as a really good character actor, if not even just stay in the genre and have a genre actor sort of afterthought of a career. Because like this, Color Out of Space, they give him the same sort of chance to be really subdued and then wild in parts, and it works. So I think if he sort of was a little bit more choosy with the roles that play into his acting style, then I think he could really have a sort of second or third go at fame. It's just all those direct-to-video ones that are just boring messes to where Nicolas Cage, the character, could be played by anybody. They do no service to him and no service to the movie.
Yeah, I would say 2018 was a banner year for him. I think kind of started his modern renaissance where it was like this and Mom and Dad, which is very fun.
So good.
And then him, of course, in Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse is like such a perfect use of Cage. Spider-Man Noir. So good. But James, what about you? What are your final thoughts, and also what you think Cage needs to kind of carry on from here with this one?
I absolutely love this movie. I think it's such a wonderful mix of beautiful visuals, astounding score, and it's very wonderful to watch. I mean, it's got a fucking chainsaw fight in it. That's badass. But it's also a sad tale about grief and loss, and it's got tragedy, and it's got a really good chance for Nick Cage to show his acting prowess in a way he hadn't done for a while before this. I mean, in all honesty, I think he deserved at least a nomination for Best Actor that year. I would have rather him than Rami Malek doing a Bugs Bunny impression, or Viggo Mortensen folding over a pizza to eat.
Hey, you stop insulting my Italian lineage with that. He was so perfect. He was so Italian.
All right, I apologize for insulting your heritage, kind sir.
Don't you dare. Don't apologize to him. That was not her.
Hey, I'm not you, Adam.
I cook a meatball. You know what I mean?
Oh, me familiar.
I would say what Nick Cage needs to do is, well, Adam said it all. He needs to be a bit more selective with his roles. I mean, sure, it does seem like the guy loves his films, but it does seem a bit like, I love food. Doesn't mean I'm going to eat for everything, no matter how awful and greasy and poisonous it may be.
You are such not an American.
True.
It's so hot.
Oh, gee, what about me gave it away?
Sorry. Anyways, go ahead. I don't mean to
Yeah, finish your final thought.
I would say, in terms of what Cage needs to do, he does have some interesting roles coming up. He's working with Sion Sono. He's doing that meta film where he plays himself, choosing interesting roles which give him a chance to show off his acting prowess, to remind people why he's an Oscar winner, to remind how good of an actor he can be. I think that's what he needs to do. And I know he's got dinosaur skulls to pay off, but come on, maybe don't do so many direct-to-video churning out stuff. You're just making that college humor video about Nick Cage accepts everything be more true.
Yeah, I would say, especially, I am really excited about the one, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, is the one where, like, he's playing himself, and he's being basically tasked with getting $1 million by going over to the private island of Pedro Pascal, who's his biggest fan. I just love that idea. That's fascinating to me. But yeah, I think the big thing that I would say he needs to carry over as well is just not being afraid to kind of balance off his genuine sort of like humanity with the craziness. Because I think that's what gets lost, even in like the fun ones that are like over the top silly. You do lose some of that humanity, so it's just like, oh, this is a fun, silly Nick Cage performance. It's not like a real movie. I think this movie does such a great job of balancing those two things that he needs to, I think, take more roles that allow him to do that, if nothing else. And, you know, where he'll have his kabuki theater influence from Ghost Rider, but also, like, actually feel like a real person at certain points. I agree with everything that's been said about Mandy, though. I love it. I think it's a phenomenal use of Cage, but also the color palette and Andrea Riseborough and all the other cast members. It's a great sort of, like, weird, trippy movie that isn't just about the trippiness. Though, for the record, as someone who allegedly may or may not have done psychedelic drugs in their time, accurate. Allegedly.
You're so cool, bro.
That's the end of our two features we'll be talking about for the evening. But we've got some more feedback to read here, because every Monday at DEDB Pod, we ask y'all, hey, what are your favorite, least favorite movies related to whatever topic we do? And so we got some people, including Mike Gordon of the ESO Earth Station 1 podcast, says, I believe there are more candidates for bad than good for Nick Cage, but when the part is right, he just shines. Raising Arizona and Wild at Heart might be my favorites. Brian McNeil at Bry the Botanist says, Colorado Space is my favorite Cage movie. I have to say that the remake of The Wicker Man is absolutely the worst he has done, since I'm a huge fan of the original movie. Marie at Swiftly She Flies on Twitter says, adaptation was probably the most interesting Nick Cage movie I've seen. It's just a wild ride of a movie, and I remember liking him in it too. And then Caged in A Saint Nick Cage podcast at Caged in Pod podcast on Twitter says, best Con Air adaptation Leaving Las Vegas. Worst Left Behind, Bangkok Dangerous, and 211. Underrated gems, Red Rock West, Joe, and Vampire's Kiss. And then our buddy Christian Alvarez says, Nicolas Cage is truly an interesting actor, despite his filmography being so mixed between good and bad. He's truly, if anything, an interesting movie star. Some of his best movies are Valley Girl, Leaving Las Vegas, The Rock, Gone in 60 Seconds, Adaptation, Matchstick Men, Mandy, and Into the Spider-Verse. Some of his bad roles, despite a glorious Cage performance, are The Wicker Man, both of his outings as Ghost Rider, Bangkok Dangerous, and Left Behind. I did edit this list a lot because I can talk about Cage all day between his relationship with the Coppola family, his absurd spending habits, and his utterly fascinating persona. P.S. No worries about my picks for the best and worst of 2020, Adam. I didn't really see much of 2020's releases, but the actual worst movies I saw last year were Gotti and The Fanatic, starring your favorite actor, John Travolta. Which, of course, he's referencing from last episode.
Go fuck yourself, Christian. I basically agree with everything that was said. I'm glad someone threw light on Matchstick Men. I really do like Matchstick Men. I remember, of course, Raising Arizona, Moonstruck. Vampire's Kiss is not a good movie, but it's an amazing Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
He's off the wall crazy in that movie, especially for young Nicolas Cage. But yeah, I tend to agree with pretty much everything that was said. The thing is, a lot of people talk shit about him, but everybody sort of is in unison on like, oh no, he can do good movies because these were all good movies.
Yeah, like Moonstruck is a favorite in my family. Shocker that my Italian family likes fucking Moonstruck.
It's not why. It's because it's got Cher in it. That's what it is.
Well, look,
your whole family's really into Cher.
Well, look, that's one of the reasons. I'm not gonna lie, clearly. But I mean, everyone in that movie is so fucking good. I think especially like Cage works so well because it's another thing where like he's genuinely like tortured because of like what happened in his past. So that's why he lashes out with it like, I lost my hand, I lost my bride, like stuff like that. But it's really like earnest and investing. Plus, I would argue, because I watched recently his Oscar-winning performance in Leaving Las Vegas. Not a fan.
I completely agree with you. I think it's over the top. I think it's comical. Not to treat the subject matter lightly, but I know alcoholics. I've been around alcoholics. I've been around people who are drunk. I drink. Nobody acts like that.
No.
Nobody falls to the table. Oh, I'm a prickly pear. Like that doesn't fucking happen.
No.
Like it's so over the top and silly.
It's especially a bummer when like Elizabeth Shue is giving a performance and she's trying to actually
she's fucking really good in it.
Yeah, she deserved an Oscar way more than he did, honestly, because they were both nominated.
Yeah, 1,000%. I don't know if that year feels like just all right, give to Nicolas Cage sort of year.
Well, yeah, it feels kind of like that, and also it's a bit of this weird thing where apparently his inspiration was he went out on binge drinking and his buddy recorded him drunk. So it's like, oh, you based that for your performance.
Oh, well, then, okay. Let me rephrase what I said. Maybe that's how Nicolas Cage acts when he's drunk. And if that's the case, fine. Not relatable to anyone else in the universe.
No, I would 1,000% say either Moonstruck, which he was nominated for, or Adaptation, which he was nominated for. He deserved it so much more for either of those. Much better performances either way. Yeah.
I agree.
Funny enough, I finished Leaving Las Vegas about 15 minutes before we started recording this, and I gotta agree. I mean, I went into it with high hopes because it's the film he won his Oscar for, but so much Sting.
Yeah, the soundtrack's terrible. Like the Sting bad cover and Don Henley. They're such terrible covers.
Oh,
you're giving me PTSD flashbacks.
Damn it!
And
look, I liked it. Jesus.
I liked the performances, but I felt it punished Elizabeth Shue's character for a sex work.
Completely agree with that, yeah.
It was not good. And I really like Wild at Heart. Nicolas Cage and David Lynch, I thought that was quite a good combination.
Yes.
And he gives such a swoon-worthy rendition of Love Me Tender. Raising Arizona is probably my favourite of his. Yeah. He's such a lovable goofball who, there's slapstick in his performance, and he does bad things, but it's more his actions are misguided. He does them all for good reasons, and I just think he's so wonderful in that.
Those are two directors he needs to work with again, Lynch and the Coen brothers. He's never worked with them since those earlier movies. The guys like perfectly fit him.
Which is odd to me because the Coen brothers reuse people all the time.
Right, yes.
So David Lynch. So there's got to be a reason there, though. There has to be.
That's true. This was around the same time of like Peggy Sue Got Married, which he had an infamous kind of like issue with like Kathleen Turner because he was like crazy, evidently, and she was like, "I'm just trying to be like an actor. I don't know what you're doing." But at the same time, I did rewatch that one too. I like that movie quite a bit. I think that one kind of got lost in like right after Back to the Future and was like, "Oh, it feels like a ripoff." That's a very cute movie about like nostalgia and like time travel stuff. And Cage, despite the weird decision of like, I want to wear huge false teeth and have a Pokey from Gumby voice. It really works for me, though, with that movie. I think particularly, there's that bit where Kathleen Turner's coming on to him, and he's talking about, like, oh, I want to have sex with you, I want to see your thing. And he says, you mean my whang? It's such a funny line.
It's stupid.
Beautiful.
I forgot. That is a good one.
I'll just mention one more film, Left Behind, which is actually the first film I've watched in 2021. It's all uphill from here. Just evangelical propaganda bullshit. And boy, is it.
Hold on, though. I think that's a very interesting story if you look at it in the sort of like the fantasy realm or things like that. It's a cool idea to where, obviously we even saw it in the HBO show, The Leftovers, where the rapture happens and these people are taken and everybody that's left has to deal with it and everything. The problem is they set on a fucking airplane, first of all. Second of all, you got Nicolas Cage, like trying to be, oh, so I don't know. Oh, landing flaps down. Like, it's so stupid. But at its core, it could be a really interesting idea. It's handled with kids' gloves because like, oh, we don't want to offend anybody. Well, just make a good movie.
Yeah, it's also just like really boring. It's such a dull movie where just like they either hang on the airplane or at the airport, and it's just like, yeah, so your mom, Leggett Thompson, got raptured, I guess, because she believed in Christ.
And I'll believe in Kabuki.
Whereas the Muslim guy on the plane doesn't get raptured.
No, or the kid from The Blind Side, the only other movie I think he did.
Yeah. Period.
But I'll say also just some of the other bad ones to me. I would say I said this on the first show, and I still agree. I don't like either Ghost Rider. I would say the first one's worse. The first one is a lot more boring to me.
Yeah, I agree. First one is way worse.
Yeah.
Even if you base it solely on his sort of in quotes chemistry with Eva Mendes, which doesn't exist, the first Ghost Rider is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. The second one's not good either, but at least it has that sort of kinetic feel to it because it's, the guys who did Crank and everything. Like, it's still wild.
He's scratching at the
door. Yeah. Pissing fire. Come on.
Right, exactly. And I would say of his bigger budgeted ones, this is, I think, the movie that got him to start doing these, like, bad direct-to-video movies was Sorcerer's Apprentice. I would say is his worst, like, huge budget movie. Because it's like, it's so much like that. It's from this time when Disney was like, hey, we don't own Marvel or Star Wars yet. Let's just do whatever we can to get little boys interested in our fucking products.
Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
John Carter.
Prince of Persia.
Yeah, Prince of... Oh, God.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal is Prince of Persia.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all, right?
Nope.
Or even, like, the one that I remember, like, so many people love, like, the compilation, but this movie's also just really terrible outside of the Cage moments, is Deadfall. Like, everyone knows it for Cage going silly. With, like, him in, like, in the Tony Clifton makeup and shit. Which just, like, he looks hilarious, and the compilations are funny, but it's mostly just an awful, dull movie.
I agree.
But then also just some good ones I wanted to mention that aren't, like, my favorites, because everyone mentioned, like, a lot of the favorites, but ones especially I watched recently. The Trust is an underrated one, I think, the one with him and Elijah Wood, where they play Las Vegas PD guys that try and break into the safe. Very solid little heist thriller. I would recommend to anybody.
Wasn't bad.
His first big role in Valley Girl, I think, is quite cute. Like, I think he has, like, a really fun kind of, like, punk role that works as, like, going off of, the lead character. I think that one's a pretty fun, especially early Cage. And I just recently watched Lord of War. He's very good in it, and it's a very like underrated satire.
I like that movie quite a bit. That was originally going to be one of my choices. We were talking about this. I think that's a very sort of underrated movie. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's pretty fucking good. Did you guys ever see Trespass with him and Nicole Kidman?
The final Joel Schumacher film.
No.
Oh, maybe don't watch it. It's just boring. It's not terrible. It's just boring.
Luckily, yeah. And would we all say that probably the peak of silly Nick Cage is Bad Lieutenant? Right?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Did you watch it? Have you seen that one?
I watched it when it came out initially, under bad circumstances, because I watched it on a plane. It was the bad place to watch it. And then I watched it again recently, and that movie actually plays even better now, because it's this weird thing where Nick Cage is this corrupt cop who does horrible, like, drug-fueled crazy things, and the police department's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Just let him do it. Like,
but honestly, not a terrible movie. It's really not that bad.
It's this weird ingenious thing of like, hey, we're gonna have Cage do this in the middle of a script that was written by like a Law and Order writer, and it feels like the beats are very like Law and Order episode, but with a corrupt cop. And then Werner Herzog doing it, so he's just like, I want to add silly things like crocodiles and iguanas.
Break me's a baby. Put a baby in it.
That's why I love Baby Yoda so much. Remind me of the iguanas.
The colder water in the prison is like your soul's inescapable. Yes, dude.
And then I love how everybody reacts off Nick Cage. Like either Val Kilmer, who's just like, "What, dude? No, whatever." You're like, come on, it's fine, sure. Or Exhibit is weirdly so fun as a straight man. Just like, man, you're crazy.
I'm about to pimp your ride.
I heard you like drugs, so I put drugs in your drugs.
Yep. I heard you like drugs, so reach out your dashboard. Those are little razor blades and dollar bills rolled up.
Remember when we tried to make Exhibit a movie star?
Yeah.
That was a weird
Remember
time.
that guy, buddy? Yeah, it didn't work out too well. Same with him and Ja Rule.
Oh, you know what? I'll say, what is a movie that you would love Nick Cage to do, especially like maybe a franchise he could join in on? I've been thinking about this. I would love to see Cage in the Fast and Furious franchise.
I literally was
Oh,
Furious.
that's a good idea.
Oh, John Wick 4.
True. He would be perfect for a John Wick.
Oh, yes.
Completely agree with
He
that.
would be really good at John Wick movie, dude. One of those two, I could see.
What about James? Do you have any suggestions for that? What do you want to see him pop up in?
Well, my instinct's the obvious ones, Marvel, Star Wars, but then I think, no, I can do better, and you guys are just overshadowing me with your great ideas, so I don't fucking know. I'll just bow to your better ideas.
What about something cool like having him a sheriff in a new Friday the 13th movie, or having him in the Halloween movie as like one of the sheriffs trying to take down Michael Myers or something? Something like that could really work for him too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or even with the Marvel thing, I think he would work perfectly in like a Guardians movie as a villain.
Yes, agreed.
Imagine him as Galactus.
Oh, God. He fulfills his dream of finally becoming Galactus.
I wouldn't be fucking surprised though. I wouldn't be surprised, and you know what? Might work, because look at the voice work in Into the Spider-Verse.
True.
It could have been Nicolas Cage in a big stupid purple helmet. I mean, it should be, but it couldn't.
In Mandy, he does some of those like voice generated things, just like, "Oh, I'm your god." Now that's Galactus, basically.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, he probably already bought the Galactus suit. He's probably got it in his closet, and he's doing 4 direct-to-video sequels to pay it off or something.
I don't know, but even if he was able to be Superman in that Teen Titans Go movie, he's still just like, I want to wear the cape. Let me wear the cape.
The thing is, they would turn him into something stupid where he's like Dom's uncle, or something dumb. It would be silly, or he's Paul Walker's father or something. Comes back and he's trying to it just, I don't know, but the absurdity of that franchise,
right? It would fit perfectly.
The John franchise would work perfectly for him. I'd be on board for either of those.
Or even if he just played like the evil like younger brother of like Kurt Russell's character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, regardless, we just want to see more Cage there. Oh, you know what? One last hot take. I'm not a fan of National Treasure. I don't get the meme obsession with National Treasure.
Me neither. I don't see the appeal.
Even hotter take, I don't like either of those two movies. I slightly prefer the second one.
No, I agree.
The second one has more silly shit where it's just like, hey, we're going to kidnap Bruce Greenwood, the president, and there's a, like, code hidden inside of the Oval Office desk that we have to decode. And hey, we have to make sure I clear my grandfather's name from being associated with the Abraham Lincoln assassination. That's fun. And plus, there's also a bit James, where he's in Britain, and he starts insulting a bunch of Brits and starts singing the I Have a Love a Bunch of Coconuts song.
Good to know. He's at war with my people.
Okay. Should he be in, like, some Mary Poppins 3 or some bullshit doing a bad Dick Van Dyke accent, James? Is that what we need?
No, he should be Mary Poppins.
Of course, that's true. Sorry, Emily Blunt. It's gotta be Cage. But thank you all for that feedback. We also want to thank some other people, like Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used in our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarter for the art provided for our show. And thanks to our patrons over at patreon.com/DEDBpod, where if you just pay $1 a month or £1, depending on which vicinity you're at, what country you're in, you can get exclusive content like our bonus episodes that we record at least one every month. And we also do polls where you guys get to pick about certain movies we do, like you all voted, as I mentioned, for next, or upcoming good movies even we do. Like, right now, around this time this episode's coming out, there will be a poll for my good picks for our upcoming episode about Netflix. We're finally covering the streaming giant, and so my two good picks for that are two movies I actually haven't seen, so you all are guiding me in this particular thing, but I've heard great things about Cargo, the zombie movie starring Martin Freeman, and then The Night Comes For Us, the action movie featuring a lot of people from the Raid movie.
Oh, I've seen both of those. Please, patrons, come on, guys, give us The Night Comes For Us. Tom's well-versed in martial arts movies. This is a perfect one. Give us this one. It's so fucking good.
I gotta agree. I haven't seen Cargo, but The Night Comes For Us. I fucking love it. You're gonna have a fun time with it.
Well, that all depends on people who vote. Like James, one of our patrons, of course, who I think we know where he's voting now, based on what we've just been talking about. But aside from being a patron, James, just thanks for being a guest, coming back on. We love having you here. Why don't you plug yourself? Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, thank you for having me back, even though Adam, I presume, was dead set against it.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
You can catch me over on Twitter or Letterboxd at RoddersJ04, spelled with 2 Ds, and I mainly post about film stuff there. I try to be funny as well. I post pictures of my dog, and he's a attention-grabbing little shit, but I just try and have a presence on there. But I also write film reviews and articles at thereviewingrodders.co.uk, and I hope you all check it out.
Yeah, we'll have some links in the description, I'm sure, if you want to immediately get your Rodders fix. And you can find us on Twitter and Facebook at DEDBpod, where, as I mentioned, we like to post around every Monday about those feelers, asking for your favorite, least favorite things related to a topic. And also, you can send emails to us, doubleedgedoublebill@gmail.com, all spelled out. And you can still buy, our merch with our logo on it. It's the new year. You need yourself a new face mask, need yourself a new coffee mug, need yourself maybe a new t-shirt.
A hoodie, a t-shirt. You could probably get pillowcases, maybe bed sheets, maybe fucking condoms. We don't know. Just go crazy with it, guys.
It depends on the TeePublic store for the ESO network. I'm not sure if all of those items will be available, because Adam bought all of them. He bought all the condoms, unfortunately. I'm so sorry, guys.
No, I don't use them. I make balloon animals out for the kids.
For the kids. Clearly. And you can find me doing my own stuff at Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as @NotTheWho'sTommy. And I also do some writing at marianithomas.wordpress.com.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at @AtomOrAdam. That's ATOM _ ADAM. I mostly just post pictures of things I've painted, once occasionally a silly meme or pictures of my kid. And I will also share whatever the hell you want me to share. I'm very generous in that aspect. So you can thank me all the time by joining the Patreon and becoming an edgelord, donating $1 a month. Thank me for all of this with $1.
Yes, for sure. And for more gratitude you can find, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcasting platforms. If you're listening on the ESO network, why not listen to our other great shows, fellow podcasts on the ESO network. And you can also dig into our archives on our Podbean main feed for a bunch of ones we didn't post even before we joined ESO. And if nothing else, if you can't buy our merch at TeePublic Store or become a patron, like Adam said, if you could just rate, review, or share the show around, that helps us get more visibility out there.
Yeah, that works too. If I share your shit, share mine, motherfucker. I don't understand what the fucking problem with that is. It's give and take.
A share for a share.
Share for a share. Share
Yes.
for a share.
Clearly.
Share and share alike.
Yes, but we are moving on now from Cage to another person celebrating a birthday for our next episode topic. We are doing Mr. Steven Soderbergh. He's such a fascinating director. James, do you agree? You like Mr. Soderbergh's work?
Oh yeah, I barely scratch the surface on his stuff, but I adore what I've seen, and I think he's such an interesting filmmaker that flits about through genres and ideas, and has such a talent, whatever he touches.
Yeah, and just even with technology. Like, I love what he's been doing. Like, he's like been innovating with like the fucking iPhones and shit, just shooting multiple movies on there and making them look really good. But I have the two good movies for this topic. Adam has the two bad. And usually we each have these two movies of ours assigned number between 1 and 10. And the other person will pick a number between 1 and 10. And that'll get closest to whichever movie that gets us a good and bad feature. But when we got a guest like James, they do the picking. So you guess the next number, James. Don't look into the future 2 minutes ahead.
I think I'll go for number 2.
Okay, for my two good picks, number 2 gets us closest to. At number 5, I have a movie appropriate for James to pick because of the title. I have the Terrence Stamp underrated gem, The Limey.
Oh, of fucking course.
Love that movie.
Such a great movie.
Great movie.
I can't wait to talk about it. It's so great.
Absolutely.
And then number 9, I had his original film, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which I've actually never seen.
Also, a really good movie. Very, very good movie. Very good Spader. Good movie.
Now I'm very curious for Adam's bad picks, because there's a lot of ways this could go. He's done a lot of different movies.
He's done some shit.
Well, James.
Let's go for number 7.
At number 8, I have a movie I don't know if I've seen, but I am aware of, and I know it's kind of universally hated. I have Full Frontal.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have not seen this one. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's Julia Roberts, and I forget who else is in it. I've never seen it. I just know it's kind of universally maligned. At number 1, I had The Informant with Matt Damon.
That's one where I don't like that movie, but I think Damon's performance is like fun enough to make it watchable.
Yeah, but that's it though.
Right. No, that's one of the lesser ones. Yeah, that's not a bad choice either. Hey everybody, this is Thomas. I'm in the middle of editing the episode right now, so this is a message from the future. This is just a quick programming note that post-recording, Adam and I did some research about Full Frontal and its availability on streaming, and we found out it's not really available on streaming at all, which was a hindrance to us doing it for the show. So instead of doing that, we're going to switch over to doing The Informant, since that is actually available to at least rent in certain places like Amazon and stuff, as opposed to Full Frontal, which is literally just not available at all. So we'll be doing that along with The Limey on our Steven Soderbergh episode next week. But back to the program. But on that note, everybody, we hope you have a happy new year, and we hope you don't get caged in for too much longer.
And I will say goodbye, and for James, I'll say, chip, chip, cheerio, I've gone and wet myself.
You're such a prick.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.